Mayor of Cotati and Chair of Sonoma Clean Power, Mark Landman, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Landman. City Clerk, could I have a roll call vote? Roll call?
Councilmember Hundley.
Here.
Councilmember Agramati.
Here.
Councilmember Edwards.
Yes.
Councilmember Gallion.
Present.
Mayor Cook.
Here. At this time, I will open up comments from the public. Members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda. It is recommended that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Under state law, matters presented under this item cannot be discussed or acted upon by the City Council at this time. For items appearing on the agenda, the public will be invited to make comments at the time the item comes to council consideration. Upon being acknowledged by the mayor, please step to the podium and speak into the microphone. Begin by stating and spelling your name.
Good evening. My name is Ann Ray, spelled W-R-A-Y. I'm here as part of the housing group from Sonoma United Methodist Church that's been coming to these city council meetings since August. The housing situation in Sonoma is dire, and people are being hurt every day by the lack of affordable rentals. When I say affordable, I mean affordable to people who work in the hotels, restaurants, vineyards, schools, senior care facilities, and the hospital. According to citydata.com, 48% of Sonoma's population are renters. So this rental problem is huge, affecting almost half of the city's population. I'm sure you were aware of the online survey taken by the Sonoma Index Tribune recently, asking if the city or county should build more affordable housing. 71% of the 176 respondents said yes. Last Friday, October 30th, the paper printed some of the comments left by people who took the survey. If you haven't seen the article, I urge you to look for it to learn some of the personal stories, frustration, anger, fear, and hopelessness of our neighbors in Sonoma. If the creek were rising and threatening to overspill its banks, as it did in the flood of January 2006, you would take immediate action to address the situation. You would declare a state of emergency and put the city's emergency plans into action. You would call in extra police, firefighters, PG&E crews, and Caltrans workers. You would order evacuations. You would set up shelters. You would be supplying sandbags at City Hall. You would not defer doing something because the need would be urgent. The lack of affordable housing is every bit as much an emergency. Please put the housing crisis on your agenda and do something to stabilize rents now, not after more families are forced to move because of obscenely rising rents. Can the City Council enact a temporary moratorium on rent increases until such time as rent control can be put into effect? Your constituents need your help now, not next spring. Please put the housing issue on your agenda now and get to work resolving this crisis. The character of our Sonoma community depends on your immediate response. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Harwood, last name spelled Harwood. Regarding the case of Irma Castillo on Broadway and the situation she finds herself in, I'm considering putting together an ad hoc Habitat for Humanity style project of a group of local concerned citizens to try to bring her up to conformity. And I find that in examining the documents that the infractions are rather generalized, and I need to know from someone what the exact repairs would amount to. as far as each of those infractions. In other words, instead of just saying it needs waterproofing on the outside or there's general state of decay, I need to know exactly what would bring her into conformity. So I need to know what agency would set the exact standards. And that's pretty, and also I would like to know if it's, if you're so far along in the eviction process that it's no longer possible to pull something like this off.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm Dave Ransom, R-A-N-S-O-M. I go to Sonoma United Methodist, live in Santa Rosa. I'd like to ask you to declare a housing state of emergency. We've all been pushing for that. We've had 3 terrible fires in Lake County. They lost 3% of their housing. The realtors were quoted saying, "We've run out of houses to rent." The governor declared a state of emergency for Lake County, and they're going to get millions in recovery grants. In Sonoma and the Springs, have we lost 3% of our housing? For most of the folks, are we out of houses to rent? It would seem to me, yes, that's the case. In September, the mayor of Los Angeles declared essentially a housing state of emergency. They call it a public emergency. He did it publicly. He said that they were involved in an intense housing crisis. The New York Times called the people involved in this crisis the dispossessed, which I think is apt because people are being pushed out of their living arrangements, their homes, their towns. That's pretty much dispossessed. The Times talked about mothers working 3 jobs, living in shelters and or in their cars with their kids. It talked about inexpensive neighborhoods being turned into enclaves of the well-to-do, housing vouchers going unused because landlords wouldn't take them, the gentrification, and this describes us too. The Los Angeles declaration of a public emergency was really targeting Sacramento and targeting the federal government. Los Angeles was saying this has gotten to the point where it is a state of emergency. Pay attention. We understand this is not going to be solved at the local level, not without federal and state funds. And so declaring a housing state of emergency puts us on the map as saying this is something that the whole country and the whole state and the whole county needs to take care of. They're targeting the governments, the state and federal government for relief. The dispossessed in Santa Rosa and Healdsburg are pitching tents on public land. You probably had reports from the forum of in El Verano, and pitching tents on the in front of City Hall was one of the things that came up in a number of the small groups. Last week, I had the opportunity to talk to a supervisor, a county supervisor, who told me that they had come to the conclusion they had to get out of their comfort zone. I think the dispossessed are already out of their comfort zone. I think all of us have to get out of our comfort zone. So consequently, I urge you to declare a state of emergency in housing, to come up with some emergency rent and tenants' rights measures, put them on your agenda, and to call a public hearing so that we can get everybody's input on this question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bob Mosher, M-O-S-H-E-R. I'd like to preface my remarks by saying, first of all, that I suspect I'm representing a group of homeowners and other interested parties down at Highway 12 Broadway and Clay Street, where the proposed affordable housing homes are being, where the project is said to be. I think that there are about 8 or 10 of us here tonight, and I think I speak for them when I say that we would be in that 71% that also agree that we have a serious housing shortage and a problem in Sonoma and actually in the whole North Bay and San Francisco. So it's a very, very broad and wide problem, and it needs serious addressing. There's no question about it. Now I will be specific about a few things that I wanted to do. Primarily, I wanted to introduce you to us as a group. I don't think that we're a standard NIMBY group in the sense that we're not here in some sort of knee-jerk reaction to the proposals as we understand them thus far. But we do believe that there may come a time down the road when the citizens' input and neighbors' input, as mandated on the RFP, page 2, where it says that it delineates and spells out very clearly what a neighborhood outreach is supposed to look like, and how any proposal needs to draw on the feelings and the ideas of the surrounding neighborhood. That's where we come in. That's what we're here for. This came as a shock and a surprise to us not very long ago to know that this property was being developed. My wife and I have lived here for over 10 years and over 40 years in the valley. And I remember on Clay Street walking down the street and giving vegetables and the like to some goats, and that wasn't that long ago. It now has 2 billboards, some walnut trees, and is proposed for some development that may or may not be consistent with the scale and the size and the neighborhood. And that's what we're paying attention to. It's on our radar. I wanted to also mention a few things. I guess our primary concern is not that is this needed or not. Our primary concern is it's the right location. It's on State Route 12 and right at Clay Street, across from the Lodge and across from Traintown and the Sonoma High School, Adele Harrison Middle School. And having lived there as long as I have, I can only say that it seems to be ground zero for intensive activity at this time. The Lodge uses that street, the portion of Clay Street, many, many times a day as a loading dock, or they use their loading dock to load and unload various things, food and the like. And that isn't going to work if there's something across the street. We have many more points to make. I'm out of time, but we're here and we want to be noticed whenever anything comes along. I've talked to David Goodison. He's been very accommodating, very forthcoming, and very terrific in listening and not trying to mollify me. I mean, we're not angry. I think we can help out.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
My name is Michelle Ritchie, Richey, and I just came to pretty much urge you to put this housing crisis on your agenda, because I think it's time. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Abigail Castillo, Castillo, and I want to talk about the housing crisis. And I think it's time to lower the rent because most of my friends and some of my relatives has to squish into one tiny little house, and my aunt and my uncles and my little cousin have to squish into this little house, and there's only 2 rooms, and they don't fit in those rooms, and some have to sleep in the living room. And while I was in math class, we were talking about rooms and if we had to share. And my good friend, said that she has to share with her sister, her other sister, and her brother, and they live in this tiny house. And we need houses because we need to This might not make sense to most people, but it does to me. And I know I'm young, and I know I might look younger than I look, but I really want to lower the house's rent because I don't want people looking all over for houses that cost a little less that they have to pay. Because it's not easy just to look for a house somewhere and say, oh, look, there's a house right there. and it has enough that we could pay. It's not that easy, and I think it's time. Thank you.
Thank you. It can come up. You can bring it up.
Hi, my name is Gwen Fisher, Fisher. I am a resident at Sweetwater Spectrum, located at 369 5th Street West in Sonoma. I do not drive and enjoy walking around town to attend my work, visit with friends, and shop. On several occasions, I have been nervous about crossing streets, especially the intersection of 5th Street West and West Spain Street. I am not only concerned about my personal safety, but also the other residents at Sweetwater Spectrum. I have observed that there is heightened potential for accidents to occur at this intersection. I have listed below my concerns regarding this intersection. Number 1, I have almost been run over by a car. Number 2, the intersection is near a residential community for adults with autism. Number 3, drivers and pedestrians don't know when to go or stop at the intersection. Number 4, the intersection could be hazardous for children not understanding how to cross. Number 5, the elderly with physical disabilities or in wheelchairs could be endangered when crossing. Number 6, traffic at this intersection will increase with the new construction of multi-family homes at 5th Street West and West Spain Street. I am asking that City Council please look at this intersection which needs a viable option to protect pedestrians. I am offering 2 solutions for you to consider. Number 1, light up crosswalks as seen on 5th Street West by Safeway, 2nd Street West, as well as 3rd Street West and Napa Street. Number 2, traffic light with walking signals at this intersection. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Gwen Fisher, Fisher.
Thank you. If you want to give that to the city clerk.
Hi, Sarah Ford, East Napa Street,
You can
Sonoma.
go ahead and bring that microphone up.
I don't have to slouch. Unfortunately, the leaf blower issue is not going away, as we all know. And I wish it would. We all wish it would. I'd much rather be working on some of the issues the people that came before me are talking about, like housing and homelessness. It's not going away because hundreds and hundreds of people throughout Sonoma are suffering and are being bothered by leaf blowers every day in their homes and in their yards when they go on a walk, a bike ride, trying to get their kid down for a nap, just trying to enjoy some peace and quiet. In many ways, we're farther behind than we were when we started this process. The good news is that many of us have been working behind the scenes with landscapers, homeowners, including some that spoke at the last meeting against a ban, landscapers like Rocco Lucero, who spoke against a ban. We're working together to reach a compromise ordinance, not a ballot measure, but an ordinance, for many reasons, one of which is, as you learned at the last city council meeting, it's a lot easier to tweak an ordinance and work with it and make it work for everybody down the line than with a ballot measure. It also avoids the divisiveness of the ballot measure. It's a savings of a few $1,000s. And I got off my script here, but I just want to say that we really listened to the concerns of people that spoke, that were homeowners that wanted to use their electric blower, to the concerns of landscapers, and they really are listening to our concerns and validating them. So there's this reaching across the aisle that's going on, and there's this compromise that's happening. It's not going to please anyone 100%, but it's probably going to be pleasing to a lot of people. It's going to be acceptable or even attractive to a lot of people on both sides of the issue. So I want to emphasize that we're compromising, and we are certainly hopeful that council members will be able to do the same. We'll be talking with each of you in the weeks ahead, probably accompanied by some of the landscapers that are signing on to this. Rocco Lucero has gone on record as signing on to it, and then we'll talk with you about the details. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I had no idea what Sarah was going to say. I'm Marilee Ebert, E-B-E-R-T, Sonoma resident and voter. So a lot of the things I had written down are very similar, so I'll be very brief here. I just wanted to point out in 2013, the City Council voted on and approved specific things that were supposed to go in the leaf blower ordinance, including not being able to blow on neighbors' properties and out in the streets, and that still has not been printed in the ordinance, and it's almost 2016, so we are further behind, just like Sarah said, almost 3 years behind. That's not being enforced either. So, as she said, we did listen to a lot of the people. We had no intentions of stopping an 84-year-old elderly woman from using her electric leaf blower if she wanted to blow off her patio. So we have been working on a compromise with a lot of people, and I hope that you guys will take it into consideration that it makes more sense to do it with an ordinance, something that you guys can tweak later, because as you found out at last meeting with the smoking ordinance, whoops, we can't do anything because it was a ballot measure. And the divisiveness, we don't need it. We need to know that we can work together as a community, that we can make everybody compromise and make it good so everybody feels like they've gotten something out of this. So anyway, so we look forward to meeting with you guys over in the next couple of weeks, and I hope that you'll meet with us individually and understand and hear our compromise. I think that you'll enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Mario Castillo, Castillo. I'm related to Avi. I'm here tonight to talk to you about the housing crisis, housing issue. And I just wanted to report to you that we had a really good meeting with Supervisor Gorin. I think that she's open to have a dialogue with us. And I guess that's kind of like what I'm after with city councils. Not so much because the families that I'm working with, which is in the Spring area, necessarily live in the city, but those are the workers that are providing the comfort for all the hospitality here in the city of Sonoma, hotels, vineyards, beautiful vineyards, and so it's sad to hear at this meeting that we had with Supervisor Goring of the issue of racial cleansing. Have you heard of that? Where people are being, there was this mom who was saying that where she lived, which is the Valley of the Moon, Mission Apartments, there used to be families, working families. Now in that line of individuals, there is only her, and then the rest are English-speaking families. And so that's really what. So that's not gonna appear on the newspaper like it appeared about this old elder lady. We're just not gonna see that on the newspaper, but that's happening. That's happening in the Springs. It's pretty bad. So we're not gonna have someone come to the rescue about these families, because nobody's gonna find out about that. We're not finding out either about families who are having to move elsewhere. We just lost, 3 families who went to Sacramento from our school because they can't afford it. So, start to think about who is it that you're going to be hiring, because there is some vineyard management who are posting on Facebook that they're looking for 30 people starting in January because they can't find someone to do the pruning. So it's getting bad, So yeah, and then now we have that there is a possibility of affordable housing, but this hasn't even begun. It hasn't even started yet, and there's already some sort of a sense of nervousness around it. So it comes down to that social inequality. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, I will bring it back to the council for meeting dedications. Does any of my colleagues have a meeting dedication? Seeing none, we will go into presentations, and we will take just a couple minutes to get the room cleared. That brings us to item 3A, presentation by Russian River Water Association for support to concept to evaluate a feasibility to establish manufacturer-funded collection and disposable program for unwanted drugs. If you could please come up.
Good evening. We have that up there. Okay, great. Thank you. My name is Andy Rogers. I'm Executive Director of the Russian River Watershed Association. The Russian River Watershed Association, which I'll say RRWA because it's a lot easier, is an association of 11 public agencies located in the Russian River Watershed. So the County of Mendocino, the County of Sonoma, the City of Ukiah, and all the other cities in Sonoma County, as well as the Sonoma County Water Agency. And in about 2003, the association came together to collaborate on water-related projects and programs and initiatives, basically to pool resources and leverage the expertise that's inherent in all the agencies. So we're here tonight, here with Mark Landman, who's our board chair. We're going to talk to you about one of our projects that we've been working on for quite some time that we're very proud of, that there's a lot of updates. And so you're wondering why I'm talking to the city of Sonoma. And the reason is that sometimes our initiatives involve programs that go outside of our Russian River boundary. And so we are here to talk to our Sonoma County partners in Petaluma and in Sonoma to tell this story as well. So I hope you're be interested. So again, just a reminder, Russian River is 1,500 square miles in both counties of Mendocino and Sonoma, and those are just a summary of all the agencies that are our members. So we're here to talk about the Safe Medicine Disposal Program, and really why are we talking about that, and why in the context of water in particular. And the problem statement with that is the accumulation of unused and expired medications creates a significant environmental concern for water agencies. And when you have medicines that, I mean, I was grown up and told to put my medications in the toilet and goes in the sewer. That is not where we want those things to go, or throw them in the trash, and so they go to the landfill. Also not an appropriate place for medicines to be stored. But there's also quite a huge public health problem statement that goes along with that. Every year in the U.S., poison control centers receive over 500,000 calls every year of a young child getting into prescription medicine. In 2012, more than 64,000 kids were treated in an emergency room for medicine poisoning, and that's one child in every 8 minutes. In 3 out of 4 of these cases, the medicine belonged to a parent or a grandparent. According to the Sonoma County Department of Health Services, 96 Sonoma County children ages 0 to 14 visited the emergency room for an unintentional drug overdose per year between 2008 and 2011. Nationally, teen abuse of prescription drugs has increased 33% since 2008. 1 in 4 teens report having misused or abused a prescription drug at least once in their lifetime. And according to the Office of Applied Sciences National Survey on Drug Use and Health, in 2008, 70% of youth aged 12 and older who abuse prescription drugs say they got them from a friend or a relative. Those are just some statistics that I thought were particularly alarming, but there are a lot more. The problem statement also spills over into crime and law enforcement. There are nuisance of accumulation of drugs is attractive to addicts and criminals, and those trends are also on the rise significantly. So what have we been doing in this program that I say we've been involved with is that the agencies that manage sewer and water have been paying for the collection and diversion of these medicines, so they are collected properly. So there's been bins placed around all over Sonoma County and in Mendocino County, and the RRWA, at least in our jurisdictions, is managing that. The Sonoma County Water Agency has been managing the bins in the city of Sonoma. And those are free to residences to bring their medicines so they know that they are collected and disposed of properly. And with really a back of the envelope calculation, since this started in 2007, at least $1.1 million has been spent by the agencies that I mentioned and that we're members with. And that does not include labor and all the educational campaigns that we've been involved with. So there's quite a bit of money being spent on this. So again, this started about 2007, 2008 was the water agency, Sonoma County Water Agency in the city of Santa Rosa. RRWA then began collaborating with and working with a very intensive subcommittee with all the agencies to put sites in Ukiah, Cloverdale, Healdsburg, Windsor, and as I mentioned, there's one here from the water agency. And so this group continues to work very hard and get sites managed and consistently, and the information out to residents as they know the service is available. So we've been doing education and outreach constantly, really important part of this. We have free drop-off locations, and to date we've gotten well over 90,000 pounds of medicines collected through this program. That's a lot of pills. And this is funded entirely by our participating agencies. And I'm going to have our board chairman, Mark Landman, tell you a little bit more.
Thank you, Andy. Well, first of all, we're kind of doing a good cop, bad cop routine, I'm afraid, tonight. And my partner's got the opportunity to be the good cop, and I unfortunately have to be the bad cop and tell you, as much as this sounds good, he's given you a history of what the problem is, the steps we've taken to try to deal with it, and it looks like there's some success with that, and indeed there has been some limited success. I get to tell you the bad news that unfortunately it's just not working and it can't be maintained, and I suspect this is something you're finding in your community as well. As we take a look at when we had our full locations, hospitals, grocery stores, the major pharmacy chains, that was pretty good. We did a decent job. People began to understand where those sites were and use them. But the process, as we go to the next slide, is we haven't been able to maintain that because, you see, without true regulatory control, without a logical system that people can depend on month after month, year after year, to reliably dispose their unused and unwanted pills, the job doesn't get done. Because as you can see, looking at this slide, in the last 7 years, we have lost all the major pharmacy locations. Most of these have been corporate decisions relating to safety issues from legal concerns, floor space, time and use issues, the type of concerns that from a corporate viewpoint would be problematic, but unfortunately from a watershed or a public health viewpoint go exactly the opposite way. This year we have run into changes in regulations. Regulations both of the DEA as well as the California Board of Pharmacy are changing. They're in flux. And this is not necessarily a bad thing. In the long term, this may resolve, as with all the other changes that are happening in this state with this issue, better. But for the time being, what it's cost us is all our supermarket and all our hardware store locations. This is really problematic because those were the most publicly convenient locations that we had left. These were the locations that people use every day in their day-to-day work, and they were reliable locations that did the job. Police stations remain available, but they are out of the way for most people. They're not a logical destination. Some folks have a reticence to go there. And while I explain how much of the system we've lost, how much difficulty we've had trying to keep bins in good locations and keep those locations open for a reasonable amount of time so the public can learn they're there and use them, the original problem that drove us to all look for a solution remains bigger than ever, and we see no end in sight to it. As we go to the next slide, this is my favorite slide. As Lori will know from having to sit through this morning, I say the same thing every time. This slide says it all, because it gives you a sense that the amount of discarded and out-of-date pills that are out there, how immense it truly is, it is truly staggering. Every year we sit here at the Russian River Watershed Association with our yearly meeting and say, okay, this has to level off at some point. When does this happen? But you can see every single year very large increases. Even this last year, despite the losses of most of these good locations, we are on track to collect 10 tons of pills in Sonoma County. That is a lot of pills. That is 20,000 pounds of pills that aren't going into your municipal wastewater treatment plants, into your recycled water, not going into your local creeks, streams, the estuary, the bay, certainly the groundwater. or alternatively, and just as concerning, being stockpiled at home for a poisoning danger for small children or a crime magnet for drug abuse. This is a big problem, bigger than anyone could have imagined. And the key thing I want to point out with this is what is interesting, despite what we've put into this, we see no end in sight. We as yet can't tell you how much is truly out there. If we were to go after this program with the tools it deserves and do it the way it deserves to be done, we're not sure how much we'd pull in, but it would probably be significantly larger than this. So that gives you an idea of what we're dealing with. So as we go to the next slide, it's clear we have a problem, and it's clear we need a better way to deal with this. We need to deal with this the right way. This patchwork that all of us in this county have put together has been expensive for us, maybe not quite as effective as we'd like, but most importantly, the biggest problem has been inequitable. It's been inequitable for all of us because all of us here in this room, all of our constituents and all our communities, we're footing the bill for this. We have been for years. Sonoma County alone, 1.1 million, and that's a very conservative estimate. It's probably closer to 2, I think, when you really put in the time and staff time. All of us footing the bill, while the most important stakeholder, the pharmaceutical industry, isn't part of the solution yet. That's the issue. I see that as a problem, and I see it, honestly, as a big problem. But fortunately, like many problems, there are solutions that work. There are solutions with track records, and I'm here to propose one to you today. And as that something is called an EPR program, yet another acronym for you to have to learn, I'm afraid. I'm sorry for that, my friends, but that stands for Extended Producer Responsibility Program. And what is it as we go to the next slide? Simply put, large pharmaceutical companies are required through ordinance, typically a county-wide ordinance, to design, manage, and finance a program to ensure that their unused products are collected and properly disposed of. Now, given the time constraints for a presentation, I won't go into great detail talking about how these plans are typically crafted, the ins and outs, and how they work. There's not that great a variety to them. But one thing I do want to share with you, which I've shared with everybody, including the WAC this morning, this is not a cutting-edge idea. It's not a radical idea, certainly. And as a matter of fact, it is not even a particularly new one. Canada, as you can see, has been doing this with great success for 20 years now, and very cost effectively, well less than a cent a prescription for their whole country. I think that's important because we look at that number and we look at some of the numbers we're beginning to see in this state, we see that the cost is not unduly burdensome nor unduly expensive for the industry, and I think that's important. The bottom line is this is a fair process, a good direction that works well and gets the job done. And as we go to our next slide, I think some examples of that might be the legislative momentum that's built up. This whole idea started 3 years ago in California when the county of Alameda put forward this concept in our state for the first time. As naturally things go in our world, what happened is there was immediately some legal back and forth for a few years, as you can well imagine, but that resolved with Alameda winning all the way up to the Supreme Court. Since then, the floodgates have opened, and many of our neighbors are following through with this. Marin County immediately adopted an ordinance. The city and county of San Francisco, Los Angeles County, Santa Clara, San Luis Obispo. Santa Barbara County is listed as having an ordinance in progress, but actually they adopted that unanimously a few weeks back now. This, of course, is an older list, and I think if we had a newer one, if we updated it, we'd probably have a couple of slides for you. So we'll avoid doing that. What we want to leave you with the thought is there's momentum behind this, and for a good reason, because as we go to our last slide, this appears to be the future. This appears to be a good direction for this state to go in. And we're hoping tonight to get you to agree that it might be time for Sonoma County to at least consider looking into doing the same thing. Now, what we've been doing is going to every city in our watershed and asking them to sign a letter of conceptual support for the evaluation of establishing an EPR ordinance in our county. We are tonight with you because although we typically don't work together in this program, and although we're in different watersheds, the best solution appears to be a county-wide one. It is one that, if that direction goes, would impact you, and as such, it's one that you should have a vote in, a voice in, and a say and be part of the process, I believe. So that's why I wanted to bring this to you and ask your mayor for this time tonight. Our goal is once we've visiting all of our member cities, we will take your combined input, your direction back to the Board of Supervisors who have indicated a good openness to agendizing this issue. And once we get there, I think we can all work together, hopefully, and develop a very good program for Sonoma County. But to get there, my goal is for all of us as cities to work together and make this easy for the county to do this. So that's why we're here, to ask for your help with that. Now, this is just an information piece, and clearly you can't take action, but if the council chooses, we'd like to ask perhaps you could bring this back either as an action item or a consent item in a future meeting, and that would be wonderful. So thank you again for your time. We appreciate that very much. If you have any questions for Andy or myself from the council, staff, or the public, we'd be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you, Mark. Is there any questions from my colleagues on the council? Vice Mayor Gallion?
Mark, would you just go over the facts and figures of what we currently spend in our programs? Like it said, 1.1 million, but the water agency itself has several million that it dedicates in its budget alone for that type of disposal. So I just wanted to relate that it is an actual cost savings to the taxpayer as well, you know, if this is gone ahead and enacted.
Well, that's a very true point, and typically, as we've said, it is a back-of-the-seat calculation, that $1.1 million, and that's involves all of us. The Water Agency does budget for this too separately. The City of Santa Rosa puts quite a bit into this process and one of the original parties involved in it. And I think that is the key point why it's important for us to look into doing this, because it's a cost that's expensive for the public. It adds up to quite a bit. If you look at our typical municipal budgets, that's a significant amount, especially when the job isn't getting done appropriately. Now, what's interesting about this, and I'd like to share, I mentioned costs in Canada. Some of the initial costs that were first looked at when this came forward in the county of Alameda was interesting. County said, we think this will be about $350,000. Drug industry said, oh gosh, no, this is going to be a little over $1 million to do your whole county. I think the truth is probably it's somewhere in between those two estimates, honestly. But the interesting point is that is, in terms of the profit made, that is so minimal. That is not a percent on a dollar for the industry. That is a percent of a percent. It is that small. And with that, it allows the job to be done correctly. So that's why it's a better investment of public funds and more useful. Plus, what we do try to do with these things is make sure through the ordinance that both when drugs are being collected or when you're getting your prescriptions, that no charge is added to the consumer for this. We try to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Councilmember Edwards.
Mark, so what's your estimate of the amount of drugs that are being flushed still? And what are you guys seeing at the water agency, or what are the water agencies seeing of the type of narcotics and or drugs that are showing up in the system?
This is what's interesting about it, Councilmember Edwards. Nobody has a clue how bad the problem truly is. I show you that graph, and although we've done a good effort, I think, working together, it could be a lot stronger. And yet with that, here we are this year alone. 10 tons. Like I said today at the WAC, I wish I could bring this as a wonderful visual to have 10 tons of pills here, although I think your city manager might not be too happy with me. No, that might not go over well. But it gives you an idea of the depth of the problem. Now, the other aspect that you're talking about is those compounds themselves. So what do they do? And this is a bigger problem. People are just beginning to recognize, especially as we drill down into recognizing as an agricultural and wine-based community, how important water and reuse of water is, and all of a sudden the issues of, what things are going through our municipal water treatment plants, what things are not being filtered, all the compounds that we take in and every day that we use as pills, medicines, many of this passes through. This is a problem that's going to take years to resolve, because right now there is no way for anyone to say to any degree of certainty what compounds are getting through, what the proportion is, how dangerous, at what certain level, is this a danger for humans or not, or even more interestingly, how different combinations of these compounds working together can potentiate and have worse problems or not. This is a process that will, I imagine, take, would you say, a decade at least? Yeah, this will be a long process for a lot of top-level staff to work through for years, and then will be even more interesting political problem to deal with. I tell you that not to depress you, though, but because what I'm putting before you tonight, this is the low-hanging fruit of this particular tree. This is the easy one. It doesn't solve the whole problem, but it takes a large chunk, at least this year, 10 tons, out of the picture. So that would be a good thing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other, Councilmember
I do have a
Agramonte?
question. Mendocino County, I know you say this is an old list. How is the luck there? Because we share, obviously, that's all shared with us as it works its way down. How is that going there?
Mendocino has an interest. They're looking at this. They're looking at there's two competing types of plans out there. The most prevalent is putting the responsibility on the pharmaceutical companies, a larger pocket thing that makes sense. I have seen some varieties of the plan where it is instead the responsibility is put on the local pharmacies. Not my personal take on which would be the best direction, but with respect to staff and the Board of Supervisors at Mendo, that's a process that at least is being discussed up there, and I think they need to work through that. As part of our agency, once we're done in Sonoma, you may guess that I'm going to ask them if we can come knock on their door and visit and talk. That's the goal. But for right now, they're looking at it. No action taken as yet. And they're having the same issues, essentially, that we are and you are. A hit-or-miss problem in keeping consistent, good locations open.
And I'm sorry, I have one more question. And the containers themselves, they're secure?
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess if I was a drug dealer, this looks pretty doggone good to me, to just take it with me. So I guess I'm just asking.
Please do.
So it's a good question. The pins are specially designed for this, and so they have triple locks that keys are only held by licensed haulers and the persons responsible. They both have to be there at the same time. It's all so there's a manifest process, and they're secured, usually secured to the ground, and so it's a very difficult thing to get at.
Anything's possible, but it would be a lot of work, probably with little return.
I know, just because I've seen some local drug collection drives, and I don't know who, I don't know who any of those people are, and so I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Thank you.
Is there any other questions? I would like to just make a comment. Thank you for your great work. So I went and used one of the boxes, and for public, since we are televised, we in the city of Sonoma, we do have one at the Vintage House and we have one at the hospital. And I like the process. You just bring in your prescription drugs. You have to take them out of the container, which is great because then they wouldn't know what the pills were. And you put it in a little plastic bag. You stick it in into the container, and there's no way that you can reach back in. So it's a secure lockbox.
It
And
would
I saw
take a
that
very
your name
special arm, yes.
and the watershed's name was on that. So I appreciate all the work you guys are doing, and this will be an item that I assume will come back to this council. So thank you.
Well, good. Thank you again very much for your time tonight. Thank you.
With that, we will move to 3B, presentation by Sonoma City Sister Cities to update the council on their organizational changes.
Good evening. Thank you for putting me on your agenda. My name is Farrell Badome, and I'm the president of the board of directors of Sonoma Sister Cities. I haven't been in this venue before, so it's a little more formal than I expected, but I'm going to be a little bit informal in my presentation. Let's see if I can see this as well as you can. I'm here by choice to give you some accountability for what we've been doing. I feel that our work is important. We are a small not-for-profit. We work on a shoestring budget. We have a small membership number, but we make a big impact in the city, and I'd like to highlight that this evening. I'd like to talk about three main areas. One is our value proposition to the city of Sonoma. I'd like to go over the highlights of our accomplishments, both in operations, that's our management focus, and our committee success stories. And I'd like to tell you what we're focusing on this year through 2016. We operate on a fiscal year basis. And then I'd like to conclude with a comment about Sonoma being what we call a brilliant city in terms of nomenclature advanced by Sister Cities International. So to start with our value proposition, we are an official entity, the official entity, providing the international outreach for the city of Sonoma. Our global relationships provide value in that through these relationships, we promote cooperation and trust at a municipal level, but not just at a municipal level, but between citizens as well. And this network builds the kinds of cultural understanding that stimulates economic development in tourism here, as well as the wine industry. Our value proposition also extends to our presence. You know, of course, who we are. But for the gateway signs and the exhibits of Sister City memorabilia in City Hall, the courts that are signed and giving recognition to Greve, our sister city in Italy, and the various events that we have held throughout the city, visitors coming to Sonoma probably would not know who we are. So we are very pleased to have that kind of presence in the city. Beyond that, our relationships link us in Sonoma to our sister cities in 7 different countries and in 4 continents. We have many delegations, visitors, citizen visitors, as well as official visitors traveling to these sister cities. And to prepare us for those visits, we have a chief of protocol who adds enormous value to us in training committees and council members and individual citizens as they prepare for these kinds of trips. These trips, of course, enhance our cultural appreciation of different people in different countries. You all know, of course, that we are #1 tourist destination, which is something we're all pretty proud of in this city. We've been named the top of the 10 wine top tourist destinations in the United States. We're now the classy party city. A dubious, I guess, acknowledgement. And of course, we have the international designation of being a cheetah slow city. We were the first city in the United States to become a cheetah slow city. So we're known as Slonoma. And in addition to that, we take advantage of course, that tourist prominence, and we bring a flow of citizens, of visitors to Sonoma through our contacts in the 7 sister cities. More specifically, the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, receives about 200,000 visitors from China annually. Chinese visitors are determined to spend about $6,000 each on these trips annually, and that economic activity spills over to accrue to the benefit of Sonoma. We don't have exact numbers of that, but it so happens that Shine Tours, who operates tour business of Chinese visitors specifically, brings over 900 people, Chinese visitors, to Sonoma annually. So that's the kind of benefit we get from our outreach and recognition of our sister cities. I'd like to talk about highlights from 2013 to 2015 approximately. It's been a long time since we have updated you, probably since we've moved out of Marcy House. And since then, we've had our hands full and accomplished a lot in operational improvements. I'm calling this staffing. Of course, you know it's volunteer staffing. But we had a long ways to go to gain the kind of talent that we needed to really expand our organization and fulfill our mission. So we've been fortunate to attract the services of Monica Menko, who's our Director of Communications and Public Relations. You've probably seen her around town. At least you've read a lot of her news releases, and she's responsible for managing our messaging and visibility internally and externally. She's been an absolute godsend to us. You know George McHale, of course, and he is our new treasurer. You may not have known that, but he's been in charge of controlling and managing our finances, and that's a really significant aspect of our functioning. Our new secretary is Violet Espirito. She's probably the best secretary we've had in many, many years. And she provides secretarial support for the board. Our new chief of protocol, you probably also know, is Sherry Ferris, and she advises the board, and she manages our international protocol and makes us, act appropriately when we're visiting foreign countries, and also when we're receiving foreign visitors here at the official level. And then we have Gigi Flager, who is our membership manager, and she is responsible for membership retention and new membership, at least on the level of telling us what we've got going for us and what we've got to do better in the future in terms of attracting members. I think in the report I gave you earlier, I gave you a little breakout of what the membership is. To continue, we've had a lot of work that we wanted to do in organizing our information and data. We really couldn't grow until we got a handle on this. So the first thing we did was learn to use Group Spaces, which is our database management app, software. And that helps us in both tracking membership and payment of dues and tracking event registration and payment for events. And to tell you the truth, before we had this, it was a pretty haphazard activity. So this is also critical to our growth. And of course, we need to house in one place now, digitally, our official records of the board, and we can do it now in Group Spaces. Our new website was the most exciting thing that I want you to know about. It gives us an interactive presence that we've never had before. We've had a website before, but it wasn't interactive. It was totally outdated, and everybody complained about it. So we dedicated resources, time, and money to the development of this website. The address is Sonoma Sister Cities Association, all of that, .org. And here's a little snapshot of Group Spaces, which you can see is our membership portal. How we collect fees. We use PayPal or credit cards. And then we've got, I'm sorry I couldn't have demonstrate our website tonight, but this is just a snapshot of it. So you can see, you can drill down into the board of directors and learn all about us, see what's going on in terms of our news and events, get into committee details, committee by committee, see what's happening with bocce ball and all the league activity and how you sign up for the leagues. You can go into our membership portal here on this site and join or subscribe to different events. And you can go into other information and find things about international protocol. So you will notice at the bottom there, the picture on the right is of City Hall. We acknowledge our relationship to the city, and thank you very much for your support. So let me now turn my attention in terms of recent highlights to the committee success stories. I'm going to talk about just a few of our committees from Aswan to Tokai, just 4 committees. They're the most active and most significant in terms of reporting out right now. Aswan has been really interesting because it's been difficult to maintain our delegation visits, having them come here and us going there because of the revolution and unrest. That's often the case in many of our countries. But we've been lucky because our chairman of the committee is George McHale, and you all know him, but he's the chair of the committee, and he's really quite a generous chair. He has managed to go to Aswan since the revolution every year, sometimes twice a year, and come home alive. We're glad to have him back. But he's also taken the initiative in getting James McHale, his son, who's a local high school student, involved in committee work. And in fact, he decided to have as his senior project a project to construct an educational center in Aswan. Now, this takes initiative, I mean, an enormous initiative to make anything happen in Swan. I've been there on 2 other projects, but this is amazing, and I like it a lot. I want to tell you about it because we want to get more students involved in sister cities. They can do great things, and there's great enthusiasm, and this is a great start. And he was, of course, has to raise money to fulfill these projects, and he was able to do that by having a documentary film screening at Sebastiani Theater. And here's another example of a good partnership with a local business to help this come to fruition. So they showed the film in Tahrir Square, 18 Days of Egypt's Unfinished Revolution. We don't know when it'll ever finish. So that's an example of what we can do more of. And by the way, son James and George just recently went to Aswan and implemented this project. And so it's an amazing relationship. It will expand when the time is right. We're hoping the Egyptians can come here next year. We have to let them out of the country. Other success stories relate to Chambol Mousini. Chanson is our kind of affectionate local term for the Chambol Mousini. And this committee has been operating under a separate 501(c) for a number of years for a number of reasons that we don't need to go into today. But this year, with the leadership of Joanne Sanders, the committee reunited with Sonoma Sister Cities. So we are all operating now under one 501(c). That's really good in terms of uniting in our strength and combined resources and not being confusing to the community in terms of how comes there's 2 of you guys. So we've got one Sister Cities Association with 7 committees operating under that umbrella. That took more work than appears on paper, but at least it's done. Before we go there, let me just mention. We had another, Chambol had a celebration of La Fête de la Saint-Vincent Tournante in 2015. And I want to bring that up because it was hosted by Buena Vista Winery. And this is a good example of a local business helping sister cities and benefiting from the presence of the Consul General of France in San Francisco coming to this event to help celebrate. And it, of course, helped bring people to that event. So we enjoy a great relationship with that Consul General as well as Buena Vista. Moving along, I want to talk about Sonoma Punlai. This is a very exciting committee. They've been very active. They've been very successful, and they're just on a roll that won't stop. And I just like to applaud what they're doing. In July of 2015, we were at this Sister Cities International. There's an international group. Awarded us the award for innovation. We have never received, Sister Cities has never received such an award before, any award from Sister Cities International. So it's very, very significant. And that award was for our Pen Pal program, started by Lynn Joyner, who belongs to Sonoma Punlai Committee. And she's been doing this now for a couple of years. And it doesn't sound like much, but it's significant if you understand that it's just a simple, old-fashioned gift and letter exchange between 4th graders. 4th graders over there and 4th graders here at El Verano Elementary School. These kids, we have pictures of them. If you go on our website, we've got all the stories and the pictures. And it is quite touching when you see it. It's quite touching for everybody that closely involved in this. And when the Punlai Committee headed off, when they headed off to Punlai this past September, an official delegation, they took with them to the school children there more gifts and letters from the students over here and shared them. And it was a very exciting thing. I think you probably experienced that, didn't you, Gary? So this is the kind of thing that really speaks to the heart of what Sister Cities is all about. And these are people's lives who will probably be changed because of these early experiences. As I mentioned, we sent a delegation, or the Panlai Committee, in September to China. There were 8 people in the delegation, led by Gary Edwards, and the mission was a simple one, but a significant one, to create tourism and friendship between the sister cities. They had an agenda, 3 items on the agenda, and they talked about them, and they had results in all 3 of those agenda items of student exchanges. They're going to flesh that out. They're starting to work on it now. A VIP visitor program, which we'll talk more about in the months ahead, but that's an arrangement between a sister city and Sonoma, where the businesses in those communities agree to provide certain benefits in a package to visitors coming to each city. So we're working on that in collaboration with the Visitors Bureau. I think it has great significance for China in particular. They're all over this. And we would like to expand it, if we can, to the other sister cities once the success has been demonstrated in this program with Panlai. The other major project that you're probably familiar with is the Chinese Heritage Project. The Panlai Committee has presented that to the Council, I think, in the past. And there's an agreement now, because of this visit, that the Chinese will help the Panlai Committee build the Chinese Ting, which is a resting place in Sonoma's Depot Park. They'll provide the materials, and I think we have to pay for the design and the building and the install of it. But there's a great partnership already in place. And this is a really, really exciting, because I think that the city of Sonoma is really at work in making Depot Park a very special place, and we can contribute to that. And finally, I'd like to talk just a little bit about the Tokai Committee. That's our Hungarian committee. They have been very successful for a number of years now in cultural and educational exchanges. And what I want to point out, in case you didn't know it, is that we do have an exchange, an intern exchange between the 2 cities. And they've been doing this for 3 years running, and they work in the wineries. They intern in the wineries. So they know, they get to learn different practices. They get to take that back, and they get to maintain an ongoing relationship. This will be expanded with an educational component this coming year. And of course, to make these things happen, the committees have to do their own fundraising. And they've been very good about doing that. They have a fundraiser coming up. You're all invited to it. It's November 14th, a night in Tokai at Burlingame Hall. So if you are available and want to come, you can register for it on our website and get some experience with our website. And finally, anticipate, if you will, that there will be an official Sonoma Tokai delegation visiting Tokai next year. So May, June of 2016, sometime in there. And somebody from the City Council will hopefully lead the delegation again. We were really, really delighted to have Gary there and with Panlai this year. And I think your enthusiasm's contagious about that experience. Okay, so finally, let me just focus a little bit on what we're up to in the months ahead for 2015-16. We operate again on the fiscal year. We want to continually improve our web presence and expand our social media. This might mean committee blogs, it might mean virtual exchanges. We haven't begun to really address this, but this is where we're thinking at this time. We furthermore want to expand programs to bring generations together and connect people around the world. Various programs are typically under the umbrella of sister cities: youth and education, arts and culture, business and trade, and municipal exchange and community development. So we'll be doing something in those areas, but we haven't decided what yet, but I want to know that that's where our energies will be. Furthermore, I mentioned we'll do the VIP program. We'll try and expand on that. And most importantly, we want to revitalize our committees that are a little bit dormant. Greve is one of those, most unfortunately, but it is. There's a couple of others, and we can strengthen our committees by growing our membership base. So that's going to be a major effort. And in our activities, we will be coordinating with the Sonoma Valley, or Sonoma Visitors Bureau, and the Chamber of Commerce. Let's see here. think I missed a, let me go back here. Oh, another effort that we want to, that will be significant for us because fundraising is really becoming critical for us. We'll continue activities to raise small amounts of money, eScript, Amazon Smile, and various committee fundraising events. But we need to initiate a major fundraising campaign with partners. And this will be a major focus for me in the months ahead. But it's extremely important because, as you know, we receive no funds from the city, and we really are operating on a shoestring. Let me see. And finally, in terms of our focus of activities, I'm suggesting that we develop also a delegation gift program. It's an official gift program, and as you know, the international program or international diplomacy requires that we have a gift program because it is a tool of diplomacy. We do not have one. We always go to, greet delegations and go abroad, kind of scrambling for gifts, scrambling for donations, and we're always a kind of a day late and a dollar short, and we really don't get them together the way we'd like to, but we've made it happen through some magnificent efforts on the part of committee chairs and Gary Edwards, and it was quite phenomenal. But at any rate, ideally what we would have is we'd have prepare gifts in a reciprocal exchange program. We would have gifts that would be in an inventory, and they would be at different levels, so that we could give them for different levels of municipal officials. They would be branded. You need time to brand gifts with either your SSCA logo or City of Sonoma logo, and these would be in a master gift inventory, and we would keep a master log of who gets the gifts, when they get the gifts, so we don't duplicate them, because that's extremely critical, again, in this official gift giving program. We estimate that this, I gave you information on this before, that the startup funding of this might be about $1,500. We do not have money for this program, but we need to have the idea out there, and if by any chance the council comes up with a pot of gold of unused funds somewhere before the end of your operational year, I hope you remember that we could make very good use of it, and maybe you could help us see this program. So in summary, I've talked about the value proposition that we bring to Sonoma as sister cities. I've talked about the highlights of our activities for the last couple of years, both in terms of operational improvements and various committee success stories. And I've talked about the association's focus in 2015, or 2015-16. We have a common goal between sister cities and the City of Sonoma. Our goal is shared prosperity and a desire to create a better understanding of people in different cultures. Essentially, investing in sister cities means investing in the future of Sonoma. Partnering cities produce bigger results, and what I mean by that is that to compete today in a global economy, in a global world, and we are part of that, cities have to advance in step with the global community. So this means that sister cities can help Sonoma see a bigger picture and connect to better ideas and find better solutions. There's a solution right there. Thank you. I like this concept of a brilliant city. It was proffered by Sister Cities International. And to elaborate on that, I'd like to close with this thought. Sonoma has never been more important than it is today. It's important in terms of the tourists that are coming here, which are coming by the droves, the people that are moving here, and by just the visibility of the wine culture and the food culture and all that we call and love about Sonoma. People come here to be near people, of course, but people living the Slow-Noma lifestyle. So that's not dissipating, that's only growing. They come here to learn about our culture, they come here because of the wine industry, and they come here to be inspired. So through SSCA, we aim to help people find common ground, boost business, tourism, and celebrate together. So thank you for having me come this evening. It's a pleasure to see you, and I hope this brings you up to date. I'll entertain questions.
Thank you. Is there any colleagues on the council have Vice Mayor Gallion?
I just wanted to say that was an excellent presentation. In my 7 years, that I've been here, you and your organization have schooled me in diplomacy many times. I just wanted to say a personal thank you. But I also feel that what was most relevant was how a person, a resident of this particular community, could go ahead and actually participate in something that's an extraordinary event for them, where they're actually taken out of their normal lifestyle and able to go ahead and participate in so many different events by having these groups come here. So although there is, this great economic, impact that you bring to us also, it's also about the character for the residents of Sonoma that you have supported. And I just wanted to have this opportunity to thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to hear that. Actually, sometimes you don't know if you go unnoticed or not, but I really appreciate that, Lori. Yeah.
Councilmember Edwards?
So thank you, Farrell, for the presentation. I was fortunate to go on the last trip to Panglai, and Lori and I were actually on a trip with Chita Slow in Korea with John McReynolds in town.
Oh,
and
wonderful.
that was exciting. We, they gave us a private train to go down to the salt fields and all kinds of great
You were
things
much better
there.
at that
Yeah.
than I was.
But we saw a lot of parts of Korea that we never would have seen. But in this particular trip, you're talking about diplomacy. We actually had a tour of the U.S. Embassy, and we had a briefing by senior staff, and that was incredible because why would a council member have that access? But we surrendered our passports and went through lots of security to get in there. And so we gave some gifts, and they were really happy that I brought cheese with me. I brought Vela Dry Jack. And this list that you have here, there's lots of cheese, and it says what was the value. It's priceless, so that's all I can say. But it was very interesting to learn about how the embassy staff came back to us and said how important it was for just citizens getting together with. I mean, the mayor of Panglai, Mayor Sun Yubao, it's a town of 450,000 people. And it's a town where the industry is gold. They're building oil rigs, they're building ships, they're doing a little more than what we're doing here. And they're just getting into the wine business, and they have, they've moved a long way in the few years that they've been in it. But just want to thank you for the presentation and the opportunity of Sister Cities. I hope somebody will go next year to Tokai. Is it Tokai next year? And hopefully at some point Egypt will be a little safer to go to for some of us, because that's
George
something
keeps
I'd like to
coming
see
back
happen.
unscathed, so I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's just interesting that Bill Borum here in town. I was traveling in Germany and France with my daughter, 4 years old, and we were at the Frankfurt airport, and who comes up to the little restaurant we're in is Bill Borum
Oh,
coming
you're
back
kidding.
on a Sister Cities trip. So it was pretty fascinating.
Yeah, he's been in
Russia.
Moscow. Yeah.
Russia. So-
Yeah.
But it is a small world, and I think these folks, I encourage everyone to go to Panglai. It's just amazing. And we learned a little bit about what's going on with the amount of dollars that are coming to U.S. currency. So they spoke about it at the embassy, and Carol and I were at an event recently. They were talking about how the money's moving around to the cleanest dirty shirt, which is the U.S. currency, which is the dollar. So thank you.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Yeah, you're very welcome. Well, the experiences with Sister Cities here and abroad really tend to be life-changing for everybody, especially for young people where it's their first trip. And, they give back and come back and give testimony to their eyes being open to things they never imagined. And so it's young people that, it's really transformative. But I think it is for all of us, too. When we travel, we always get bigger and learn more. And broaden our thinking. So glad some of you are able to participate, and look forward to seeing you around town and at our events. Thank you for the time to be here tonight.
Just have a quick.
Councilmember Agamate.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. I too watch Bill Borum on Facebook. I'm amazed, and he's always smiling. He never looks tired, so I think that's really great. My question is with respect to the level of gifts. I would imagine you have other sister city organizations that you might be able to tap into to find out what those gifts might look like or what they should be. I think you were talking about branding and different levels of gifts, so I'm sure you're aware of how to look into that, how to find those things out.
Our chief of protocol, of course, is an expert in that. But what we will rely on is and the committees know a lot. They know their counterparts, and they know what there's some sensitivity in gift giving, and also there's sensitivity in the levels. So, for example, I think, Gary, you were able to present the Sonoma art book to the mayor of Punlai. So that was...
But we also got a little creative. We gave him a little cheese as well. But also, I tracked down an accordion and had my wife play music at one of our dinners for the mayor, which was another priceless gift that...
this is an intangible, and there's nothing bigger than that. That's sensational. I mean, everybody's still talking about it. So, but anyway, there's a lot to the protocol around the gift giving, and you're right. We can see what other sister cities are doing as well as use our own resources. But the committee chairs also develop and refining this gift program will submit ideas so that we can kind of identify what we need to have an inventory. Because we're not really able. I mean, you were able to bring pins, city pins, I think, to China, which is very nice. That's a kind of secondary level gift, but really nice to have. We weren't able to brand some of the other things that we gave that we could have if we had time. And there's cost, of course, associated with that. So there's no mud on our face because of this. It's just taking advantage of an opportunity to do it even better.
Councilmember Hundley.
I just want to say thank you. I always like hearing what you guys are doing, and I hope maybe I can go on your trips one day.
It'd be lovely.
And also want to say thank you.
Sure.
And appreciate all your hard work, and I'm sure that we'll continue this conversation, so thank you.
Thanks.
With that,
Good night.
We're going to go ahead and go to the consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these issues unless members of the council, staff, or public request specific items to be removed for separate action. At this time, council may decide to change the order of the agenda, which, does any council members have any questions? Seeing none, I will go ahead and open to the public. Seeing none, I will bring it back to council discussion and action.
And I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda 4A, 4B, 4C, 4D, 4E, 4F, and 4G.
Second.
Is there any other discussion on the consent calendar? Vice Mayor Gallion.
I would just like to recognize Chris Petlock in the audience and thank him for all his due diligence. He left just around the time that I was on council. I left, came to council, he came on, and I know he's been doing a great job, and thank you again for what you've been able to contribute to the community.
Is there any other comments? Seeing none, City Clerk, I would like to call for a roll call vote on the consent calendar.
Councilmember Hundley.
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte.
Aye.
Councilmember Edwards.
Yes.
Councilmember Gallion.
Aye.
Mayor Cook.
Aye. And for public, the consent calendar was passed 5-0 on items 4A, 4B, 4C, 4D, 4E, 4F, and 4G. And I also would like to thank Christopher Petlock for being in the audience and serving on that committee, and we continue to see success in that committee, so I thank you for that. With that, we will go ahead and go to the consent calendar for the City Council as a successor agency. Item 5A, approval of the portion of the minutes of the October 5th, October 7th, and October 19th, 2015 city council meetings pertaining to the successor agency. Is there any council questions? Seeing none, I will open it up to public. Seeing none, I will bring it back to the council. Vice Mayor Gallion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, City Clerk, could I call for a roll call vote for the consent calendar for the City Council as a Board of Appeals on item 6A?
Councilmember Hundley.
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte.
Aye.
Councilmember Edwards.
Aye.
Councilmember Gallion.
Aye.
Mayor Cook.
Aye. And for public, item 6A passed 5-0, which moves us to the end, seeing that we have no public hearings and we do,
You skipped it, 5A.
oh, we do, okay. I will open consent calendar, City Council as Board of Appeals. Item 6A, approval of the minutes of October 5th, 2015, meeting of the City Council acting as the Board of Appeals. Is there any council questions? Seeing none, I will open this to public. Seeing none, I will bring it back to the council for discussion and action. Councilmember Hundley.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the October 5th, 2015 minutes for the Board of Appeal.
And I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? Seeing none, City Clerk, could we call for a vote on item 6A?
Councilmember Hundley.
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte.
Aye.
Councilmember Edwards.
Yes.
Councilmember Gallion.
Aye.
Mayor Cook.
Aye. And for public, we passed item 6A, 5-0. We do not have any public hearings, and there is no agenda items on our regular calendar, which moves us to council member reports and comments. Vice Mayor Gallion.
Well, good evening. I see that we're rapidly ending this meeting. Okay, I would just like to go ahead and voice my support as an agenda item to come back and go ahead and talk about a letter of support that we would write concerning our presentation this evening on medical waste and the safe disposal of it on a countywide basis. So the extended ERP program or extended program. I just wanted to also state that I attended a military ball on Saturday night, and we had a general who was speaking. I was very moved by the veterans who actually came to this particular ball, and it's in celebration of the Marine Corps. Every year they celebrate their birthday, which happens somewhere around the first week or 10 days of November. I was absolutely astounded to know that there's 15% of veterans that are unemployed in this country. And in the state of California, there is a rapid movement to have them placed in jobs. Our returning vets from our wars, especially most of those that have happened or campaigns within the last 10 years, are very devastating to family members. And, having the youngest Marine being 20 years old and having to have him be assisted to even walk to the cake cutting, which is the ceremony, where the oldest Marine gives the youngest Marine a slice of birthday cake, was very moving. And he was married, had a very young wife, and this was a lot for a couple to really go ahead and go forward with. They are one of the largest agencies for the Semper Fi Fund, also the Wounded Warrior Fund, and this particular organization has been, very active in this campaign. So I also felt very proud because as the city of Sonoma with Mayor Rouse last year, we signed the compact where we are actually giving preference to military. And I think it's important when you're celebrating Veterans Day this year that you also think about those who, are no longer employed and are out there, have incredible skills from their training, and are desperately looking to go ahead and provide a life and income for their family members. And that's one of the things that I felt was very moving for me as we go through the ceremonies on November 11th. I had one committee that I attended, and that was the WAC this morning. There is a lot, going on in water, a lot in our protection, a lot where we're trying to find answers about how we are going to approach the next 20 years, the next 50 years, as far as the drought is concerned, climate change, and other things. But we certainly have, I felt after the presentations this morning, one of the most incredible water agencies in their attempts with all of their cities, and the TAC, the unsung heroes in our community that actually take and get down to those number crunching figures, those all the details that happen around the water flow and water supply. And I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize Dan Takasuki as our representative here in Sonoma. He has done an incredible job. We received for the third year in a row recognition on our QUEL program, which is the Qualified Landscaping Program for Wise Water Use. And this is outstanding. There was a picture that was taken for most of the members with the award itself. And this is due in no small part to our municipalities actually, putting forward this as a program of education so that we can go ahead and afford both our residents as well as our landscapers the ability of being current and up to date and the most effective use for water that is such gold in our community. When we did the report on the Sonoma Marin Saving Water Partnership, I was kind of really shocked. It was amazing here because, for years I've sat, this is my 7th year, on this particular committee, and for years it's always been about, Sonoma or some other city, and how can we get them together and how can we go ahead and get everybody, together in our water saving partnership. But we actually, even though we were lower in our water savings in the month of September as a benchmark to 2013, we are a winner in the respect that we are the highest saver in our benchmark in the county. So this is in no small part due to our community, our residents, our commercial users, our staff, everyone here doing their part. And I just think this is a wonderful recognition. And again, I would like to have another shout out to staff on that particular respect because you have just done an incredible job in keeping us, on the mark. And it's been very difficult, and I certainly know that recognition. Last thing is that in one of my reports is that in the October meeting I happened to mention, or I happened to look down, and it says that Lake Mendocino was at a 52% capacity, and Lake Sonoma was at 72% capacity. Carol, was Dan going to say anything about what's happening with our ordinance and our use and our timing? Because we've had rain today, and maybe some people are not aware of, what our limits are with our water use at this point.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. The emergency water conservation regulations that were imposed by the City Council, I think back in May, are still in effect, and the state has, at this point, has no intention of rescinding or removing those emergency regulations. They are due to expire in February of 2016, but early indications are that they do intend to extend those even further. One of the regulations I think that Councilmember Gallion is referring to is no irrigation within 48 hours of a measurable rain event. So we would ask that residents curtail their irrigation, for example now, after a measurable rain event for 48 hours. Again, the same irrigation restrictions are in place for watering, outdoor irrigation, on Monday nights and Thursday nights only.
Thank you, Dan.
And that concludes my report, other than the fact, I guess I could share this. It'll happen when we meet again in February, but the slate for the nominating committee for vice chair and chair for the Water Advisory Committee is myself as vice chair, which is a 2-year term, and Mike Healy from Petaluma as chair, which is a 2-year term. So I would successfully, after serving my term, go on and be chair in 2 years after this. So after 7 years, I'm beginning to feel a little old there, but I just wanted to say that it was quite an honor to actually have that position. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Gallion. Is there any other council comments?
I'm sorry, I do.
Councilmember Agramonte.
Thank you. I serve on the Health Roundtable Committee, and through that, they have been working with the county to put together an ordinance similar to a smoking ordinance, a TRL, similar to Sonoma's, to encourage the Board of Supervisors to put it back on their agenda, because I think it's sort of, it was left off for a while, and now we're trying to encourage them, and I think that's very important. Also, Jim Letty made a presentation to the Health Action Committee, I believe last month, and it's the report is Building Homes, which I think hopefully we've gotten copies, and I think we have. But I'd like to be able to encourage us here, this council, and of course the city of Sonoma, to go ahead with his suggestion that we have a presentation here to the city council, and also in addition a public workshop, which is what he's suggesting regarding building homes. I think we've had people come to us numerous times regarding the housing issue, and I think this is something that's really important. So that's my request. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor Cook. We actually have that presentation scheduled for our next council meeting.
Okay, thank you.
That's what I've heard. Thank you.
And I'd like to report that on November 11th is Veterans Day. There will be a ceremony at the Veterans Hall for the disposal of some American flags. And also on November 14th will be the lighting of the plaza. The Visitors Bureau has contacted and said that there possibly will be 1,500 people celebrating that event. So I asked the locals to come to the plaza on November 14th and enjoy the lights that will be there. As far as committee reports, Sonoma Clean Power, we had our meeting earlier this month, and I will be bringing some information to the council about possibly looking at Sonoma Clean Power expanding in the future, and to get my colleagues on the council to weigh in if we do believe that Sonoma Clean Power should look to the north or to the south or to the east, to the east, as possible communities that could be involved in that. And with that, I do want to mention, I think it's time that the mayor says something about affordable housing, because we've had a lot of public comment about it and asking for it to come up on the agenda. I just want public to realize that I think all my colleagues here on the council have looked at affordable housing and are talking to our state and county leaders to help us in that. It is a local problem, but it branches out further. And we are well aware up here that Sonoma has an affordable housing issue, and I just want them to know that them coming to the council, they've been heard, and we do sympathize with them, and we will do anything possibly to help in that situation. I do have office hours on Wednesday at 11 o'clock, and I would like them to come and speak about it. And I do know that Supervisor Gorn has been contacted by those individuals, and I hope that in the long run we can find something that can make that dilemma go away, especially in the state of California. With that, I will send it over to the city manager for comments and announcement, including announcements from the successor agency.
I have nothing to report tonight, thank you.
All that I said was longer than your report. That's good. Thank you.
Yes, because you stole all my thunder with all the holiday lighting.
As a reminder, November 14th, the plaza will be lit. Now I will open up comments from the public. Is there any member of the public that would like to discuss or have a comment? Seeing none, I will bring it back to council for adjournment. Thank you.